Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy show. Today, we're talking about monkey see, monkey do, but in another way, monkey cheat, monkey do. How to overcome peer pressure. See you in just a minute. Well, good morning, everyone. Hope all is well. Welcome to the Couples Academy show. We are in a series, if you haven't known, if you're just joining us for the first time, Overcoming Infidelity Complexities. We're going to do a long series really unpacking this thing called an affair, what it means, what it does, what it looks like, how to overcome it, how to bounce back from it. And so today we're talking about monkey cheat, monkey do, the power of influence in your decisions. And so the reality is, when you're talking about why do people do what they do, oftentimes we're trying to discover the why, because if you don't know the why for a thing, it increases the possibility, in some cases, the probability that it will happen again. But if you get to the root cause, you can begin to correct some things. Just think about having a toothache, going to the dentist and saying, "Doc, this tooth is really, oh man, it's pain, it's throbbing, I don't know what to do." And then upon x-rays, they discover, well, there's something in the root we have to get to. So they engage in performing a root canal. And by going into the root and healing and cleansing and whatever it is they do, it solves the problem, the pain goes away. Likewise, when you need to figure out why something's happening, you have to go to the root. One of the root causes of an affair, we know this because we've worked with countless couples over the course of a decade, that individuals who engage in infidelity, one of the contributing factors has been what they've been exposed to. Okay, so the idea of observing certain behaviors in their childhood, right? So this is a part of the family marinade that we always talk about. You've been soaked and saturated in a culture, in a tradition, in a behavior, in a lifestyle that you've seen growing up. So whether you were yet a child, maybe an adolescent, a teenager, whatever the case may be, it's not about right or wrong. We all inherently know, generally speaking, right from wrong. We know that an affair is wrong, but because that's what I've seen, as we've always said, children learn by observation and then participation. So oftentimes they play out in their adulthood what they've seen or what they saw in their home. And so if they saw a situation where dad had other friends, mom had inappropriate relationships, there was, I don't know, multiple uncles, right, or aunts that you were always introduced to that you've never met before, or maybe there was arguments that you always kind of had an earshot to and experienced, and somehow the idea of another man or another woman was always coming up, whether it happened multiple times or whether it happened one time, whether it was an emotional affair, a short-term one-night stand, or a long-term relationship that literally lived in the shadows of that marriage. Whatever it may have been, as a child being exposed to that, you saw what you considered to be, oh, this is what it is. And so a lot of times when you become an adult, either you become the exact opposite of your parent, or you fall into the same trappings that your parent fell into. And then when you begin to discover why, it becomes a revelation to you. Well, that's what you saw in your home. And so usually in the process of walking people through personal recovery and transformation, it is unearthed. Yes, I was in a household when I saw this type of behavior. Another contributing factor would be extended family. Or even, if you have siblings, think about this growing up, my brothers or my sisters, they always had relationships, but they were always playing the field. And that's what I saw. There was the woman, the main woman, and then the woman on the side, or the main guy and then the guys that she would entertain on the side. So whether it came from siblings whether it came from cousins and aunts and uncles. It is an environment that you have been exposed to. And it's unfortunate in some instances that we become products of our environment. And subconsciously, unconsciously, we carry beliefs and mindsets and behaviors that are unhealthy. So when we get into a marriage, because that's what we've always seen, we assume, oh, this is what it's supposed to be. And so the whole idea is, yes, I love you, but I didn't think anything was wrong with this. I didn't see what the problem was because this is what I've been exposed to. At some point, you've got to come to the realization that, when you become an adult, you have to put away childish behaviors that don't serve you, that don't serve that marriage. And so rather than looking at a bad example, an unhealthy example of what marriage and fidelity and commitment is supposed to look like, it would be important to look at a positive example, a positive model. But listen, let's get into this conversation. If you have questions regarding this topic on infidelity and the influences that impact how people do or why people do what they do, please put the chat in there so we can get it. But let's just acknowledge those who are on. Good morning, Angel. Good to see you. Stephen, good morning. Ann, good to see you. Corliss, always good. Kiara, good morning. Yvonne, I think we have a new listener, Cassizia, who's watching from the Bahamas. We want to welcome all of you to the show this morning. We're talking about monkey cheat, monkey do. We talk oftentimes about placing proper boundaries around your marriage, particularly when it comes to members of the opposite sex. So if we're dealing with old high school sweethearts or quote unquote platonic friends or people we associate with at work, we have to be careful about these connections because they can negatively impact your relationship. But we don't spend enough time talking about same-sex friends, and they can be just as dangerous if they don't have a marriage mindset. And so the reality is, if you have friends in your life that are living a lifestyle that would not be honorable to their marriage, having close ties and relationship with them could have an impact on your marriage. We know statistics would even suggest couples, individuals who have friends who are getting divorces, it impacts their thinking about their own marriage. They begin to reevaluate, they begin to question. And if everyone around them is getting a divorce, I guess that's what we're supposed to do. But likewise, when it comes to inappropriate behavior, whether it's sexual or emotional or social, if you're in an environment where everyone, that's the norm, that's just what they do, it can have, over the course of time, an influence on you. And being around the wrong people long enough will ultimately affect you. All right, so Kiara says, at some point, we have to stop blaming our marinade. Like, come on now, you're grown now. And that's absolutely right. You do. And I think, there's a scripture that says, when I was a child, I thought as a child, I spake as a child. But when I became a man, I put my childish ways behind me. And I think that's critically important because oftentimes that's exactly what we do. We say, well, that's just how I was raised. And, that's how my mama raised me. And that's what I saw my daddy do. And it's just like, dude, you've been out your house since you were 18 years old. You are 48. You are 58. So that means you haven't grown since then. You haven't developed, you haven't matured, you haven't taken on a new belief, a new reality. And you're right. I mean, the fact is, there is an influence. We can't deny that. That's why it's been said for so long. The Roman Catholic Church has said, if you give us your child for the first 5 years of that child's life, we'll have them forever. In terms of instilling faith traditions and beliefs, because it is in that first 5 to 7 years that a child is the most impressionable. They're forming beliefs, they're forming values, they're observing, because we're like sponges and we look at everything in computers and everything's being downloaded, and it becomes downloaded in your subconscious mind. And 95% of your thoughts, your words, your actions and reactions are based upon your subconscious thinking. And so if you've been shaped and formed and fashioned in a particular way, yes, you begin to go in that direction. And that is why change is so difficult, yet so necessary. Because we've seen people who have come from horrible environments, on the wrong side of the tracks, if you will, exposed to all types of just unhealth, yet they don't follow in that tradition. Why? Because they were willing to put in the work. And if you are willing to put in the work and to do what's necessary, you don't have to use mom, dad, cousin, friend, whoever as an excuse for your behavior. You have to have a moral compass, and you have to have a healthy foundation that you're anchored in, that governs your decisions, that governs your behavior, that keeps you in track. Hope that makes sense. All right. I can't pronounce this first name, but this is an important topic. And this is the clarity that our spouses need to have when we show an aversion to some of their particular friends. Absolutely. We say this all the time. If there is a friend in your life that your spouse has a problem with, is worthy of a conversation. I remember many years ago when we lived in New Jersey, there were certain people I associated with, friends I thought were my friends, but really weren't my friends. And because I was so close to them, I couldn't see what my wife could easily observe. First of all, she's very perceptive and has discernment, and she can read and pick up on people. It's almost like you ever walk into a room and you smell something like, what is that smell? It stinks. I don't know what that is. I can't figure it out, but it's something. She has that same gift and knack to pick up on people's motives. And so there were some individuals in my life that I could not see what was wrong, and she quickly spotted it. And being new to the relationship, I'm like, Danielle, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. I just think you're overboard. You're extreme. And then it proved itself to be true. And then it happened again, proved itself to be true. Then it happened again, proved itself to be true. And so I began to realize, you know what? She has a perception that I don't have. It reminds me of the movie Hear No Evil, See No Evil. Remember that movie way back in the day? I think it was with Gene, what's his name? Gene such and such. And Richard Pryor, but one was blind, one was deaf, and they had to rely on each other because one person had a sense that the other didn't. And when they came together, there was no weaknesses because they relied on the strengths of one another. And likewise, in a marriage, you got to do the same thing. So if your spouse, and they're not coming from a position of insecurity or whatever, but if your spouse identifies and observes something, sees a behavior that you've rationalized and justified as no big deal, pay attention. Because oftentimes we'll say, well, that's him. That's what he does. I'm a grown man. I'm a grown woman. I don't do that. But being in close relationship with and to puts you in a position where you begin to rationalize, you begin to normalize bad behavior. So you have to properly manage the company that you keep. All right, Tamika Love, this is something that I'm faced with. My husband has a close friend that is unfaithful, and now he's done this. He grew up with no representation of marriage in the home. What do I do? Pray. Continue to have conversations with him. And sometimes, the reality is if he's not receptive to what you are saying, sometimes you have to be wise to bring people, to bring information in front of him that's reinforcing the same message. And sometimes hearing the same thing through a different voice helps. And, unfortunately, that's how we are. We become, I don't know, oftentimes we don't value or honor what our spouse is saying because we're so close, we take them for granted. But I think if you have another couple that you can look at that can act as a model for you, that's why it's important to have marriage mentors. In addition to a counselor, in addition to a spiritual authority who can speak into your life, that's someone who gives you instruction and principles and guidelines for how to live. But when you have another couple or a community of friends who are operating in an honorable and an integral way, that has a significant impact. That's why we say counseling and counseling/coaching and a community are critically important. Like if I told you to walk outside your home and walk 1 mile in any direction, but you could only use 1 foot, well, you'd be hopping. And pretty soon your knees and your shins and your legs would begin to hurt. You probably wouldn't make it to your final destination. But if I said use both of your feet, you would get there successfully and relatively faster. Well, we look at coaching or counseling as your left foot and a community, a support group as your right foot, and you need both in your journey to get to your final destination. So while you're getting principles and guidelines over here, you're getting examples, right? And you're getting relationship with people who are on the path moving in the same direction over here. Because the reality is you are the sum total of your 5 closest friends. When you think about your finances, wherever they are, look at your 5 closest friends. When you think about the health of your relationship, wherever it is, look at the 5 closest associates, look at your friends. Like, you are a product of your environment. And if you want a new reality, sometimes you have to change your environment in order to get something different. Kelly Johnson says, never burn a bridge is what my mama taught me in regards to exes. Well, mama was wrong. We love mama, but mama was wrong. You have to burn that bridge, destroy that bridge, implode that bridge, because if you have a bridge to go back, when you're feeling weak, when you don't feel like, working on your marriage and you just want to throw in the towel, call it quits and give it up, you will try to cross that bridge and go back. And so that's why we talked about, when we had our Audacity of Marriage virtual conference, the whole concept of burning your boats. Burning your boats. Your boats represent the alternative other. Your boats represent my plan B. Your boats represent that individual that you have on the side, just in case things don't work well. And so what happens is, if you know you have a boat that's available whenever you need it, it will give you more of a motivation to leave your current situation to go to what you believe is a better option for you. Even if it's a tugboat, a rowboat, a boat with a hole in it, it looks better in your mind than your situation. But when there are no boats, when there are no bridges, when there are no second options, then what you're doing, you're shaping your mind and getting it in tune with your current situation so that you can become your best you and you can have your best relationship. All right, Corin says, absolutely re-examine your circle. 1000%. Corliss says, if there's a so-called friend my husband has said there is nothing but a friendship, I've met her maybe 1 or 2 times, how can I get him to understand that I need to know her as well? Well, that's why it's important to have a shared value system and a relational code of ethics as it relates to opposite sex friends, as well as same-sex friends. And the reality is, as we've said before, your marriage is your primary relationship. Everything is secondary, tertiary, so on and so forth to that. And nothing should compromise the integrity of your relationship. And if this opposite sex female friend who's just a friend is a problem for you, it's worthy of a discussion and an introduction. And truth be told, Danielle has had male friends prior to meeting me, but I met them. I know who they are. I've had conversations with them. Likewise, me, female friends that know my wife, that have had a better relationship with her than me. And so the reality is, if your spouse has a friend, that friend better become your friend, or at least to be friendly. Now, you never may connect with that person because that's just not who you would normally connect with. But if you are friendly and if it's respectful, and this is not some friend that he has on the side that he compartmentalizes and doesn't allow you access into, it's not a problem. But if that's what he's doing, yes, it is a violation that can negatively impact that relationship. All right, the comments are coming in. I'm gonna try to get to as many as possible. Angel says, I was told by a minister that me wanting to be made aware of my spouse's whereabouts is me subconsciously trying to make sure there's no infidelity after the initial infidelity. What do you think? Well, I don't have a problem with that. Sure. You need to know your spouse's whereabouts. If there's been a violation in the marriage and now you're trying to get things back on track, you don't want to go back to business as usual. You want to do something different. You want to show up different. There's got to be new guidelines, a new culture in that relationship. And guess what? Certain things that you used to do, you just can't do anymore. So if there was a blind trust in the past, well, those days are over because of a violation. It doesn't mean we have to live in prison. It doesn't mean that our marriage is now doomed. No, we just have to establish a new norm. After 9/11, did not we have a new norm? This global pandemic that we're in currently, there's going to be a new norm. So as milestones happen in your life, as setbacks that can cripple your relationship happen in your life, in the recovery process, you have to do things different, because at the end of the day, when an affair happens, oftentimes it shines a light on the relationship and you begin to see what wasn't right in the first place, what foundation you did not have that caused the problem in the first place. So hopefully that helps. All right. It's so interesting how you can try to Communicate a certain point to your spouse and be completely disregarded as nagging or crazy, but the same point can be made by someone else and they hear it loud and clear. As an intuitive wife, I tend to hear a lot of, I should have listened to you. That's true. You're right. What you want me to say? I was in that same position. You're right, Danielle. You're right. You're right. And this is why we say you have to have a community to support your marriage, because what you don't hear or refuse to hear from your spouse, you may be more open to hearing from someone else who can speak into your life. And that's why the power of community is so important. All right. Jennifer says, due to betrayal in my marriage, not the first time, I told my spouse that I would not pursue marriage counseling. I felt that it was important that he wanted to fight for himself and deal with whatever is causing that before you could fight for us. Would you consider that a wish choice? Listen, I hear this all the time. To be honest with you, I would not wait. If you're the one who was cheated on and in your mind, you're like, I want him to show and prove. If he really wants this, he'll do it. And I get that. And it makes logical, practical sense. The reality is it doesn't always happen like that. The reality is oftentimes the one who has been betrayed is the one who's fighting and doing all the research and doing all the work and finding someone who can help. And guess what? If you happen to find someone and get into a counseling session, transformation, miraculous things can happen in that. If you're sitting back waiting for him to get it together, for him to do something, you may be waiting a long time. So if the marriage is important to you, play your role. Get in front of somebody who can guide you both through a process, and then let the counselor take over. Let the counselor speak into his life. Because once again, that counselor can say something that you weren't able to say that got through. So if you have to put forth the effort to find someone, please just do it. Rob him of any and every excuse possible not to make this relationship work. All right. So I hope that helps. Reach out to us. We're here to help you. Janice, how do you deal with a situation where your spouse introduces his opposite sex friend to you, but they are still very touchy-feely with him and sees nothing wrong with it, even though he sees it upsets you? Well, once again, it's a violation. It's disrespectful. It's not honoring to your spouse. It needs to be checked. The behavior needs to be changed. And here's the deal, guys. A lot of times we fear, what if he or she does it again? What if they continue to do this and continue to do that? At the end of the day, you cannot control people's behavior. The only thing that you can control is yours. And what I would say, there has to be consequences for bad behavior, whatever that looks like. There has to be a reward and punishment system built into your marriage. Because if there are no consequences and there's no pushback, and other than an argument, fine. Yeah, you argue, you get mad, you scream, you yell, you cuss, you throw things, you cry, but you get over it. And I'm going to continue the same behavior. And so what does that teach him? Well, okay, it'll fade. I'll give it about a week. Things will be back to normal and I'll engage in the same behavior and activities. But if you've established clear ramifications, repercussions, consequences for behaviors that's crystal clear, you've discussed it in your work meeting, then guess what? It is what it is. And if he or if she should do it again, boom, we already know what's going to happen. And so just like in this society, if you break a law, you can't break a law. If you don't obey a law, there's a punishment for such behavior. Why would a marriage be the one thing where we don't have that? Remember, God is love, but God is also law. And you need both love and law in a relationship to make it work. Guys, we've got just a couple more minutes. I want to hit some of these questions. Kelly Johnson says, what if you've done the work and found resources and the spouse doesn't want to continue? When do you throw in the towel? Well, I will say that there are seasons that people go through. A perfect example, there's a couple who came to me. She wanted to restore the marriage. He was done. He was just like, you know what? Nope, not doing it. Don't even try it. Somehow we were able to convince him to get into a session. He was really resistant, not trying to do it. She was unfaithful. It was hard for him to deal with it. And so what happened was, after the session, we didn't have another session, found out a month later that he now got into a relationship and she was done. She was just like, you know what? I tried. I went to counselors. I read books. I've accommodated. And now you're going to do this. I'm done. And guess what? When he was resistant, when he got involved in another relationship, he was doing it because he was hurt. He was doing it because he was still mad and he wanted to punish her. He always wanted his marriage, but he was going about it the wrong way. And so now when she was done, he's now ready to put in all the work. He's ready to go to counseling. He got back into church. He cut off that relationship. So I think a lot of times people are stuck because of ego and pride, and they're very, what's the word I'm looking for? Disagreeable to a process, though deep down inside they want it. And so I say that sometimes people are in seasons, and it's about helping them to get unstuck and helping them to realize if they don't course correct quickly, that marriage could ultimately come to an end, because everybody at some point can reach a breaking point. And you never know what that breaking point is going to be, and you never know when that breaking point is going to happen. And so that's why you can't play with this. You cannot play with matters of the heart, because it's not going to go that you want it to go. Joy Fit Pro, but what about habitual cheaters? Years of it, different people, and not just cheater domestic violence. Why save it? Is there a difference between a counselor versus a spiritual counselor? Of course, there's a difference between a counselor and a spiritual counselor. You know, spiritual counselors don't have the training that professional counselors have, and professional counselors don't have the training necessarily that spiritual counselors have. So I believe in a community of counsel, and you have to go to different people for different things. So if you want biblical insight, spiritual wisdom, you go to a spiritual counselor. If you want a process now for healing, personal transformation, relational recovery, you go to a professional marriage counselor. There are some who are both. Right? Couples Academy, we are both, right? We have the spiritual side, we have the professional practical side. And when you bring that together, you have more of a comprehensive approach to what needs to be done. So these are the things that you need to begin to do. Yes, there are people who have been habitual cheaters. Oftentimes when we're dealing with couples, I would say about half of the couples have experienced affairs for the first time, and that other half have gone through it a multitude of times. But there is possibility for total transformation. So the idea of once a cheater, always a cheater, we know that that does not have to be the case. And we have several examples of people who have not done that. Tiona, forgive me if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. This information is more valuable than gold. Thank you both for all that you do. Well, can I trade this information in for some of your gold? I'll take your gold for this information. We appreciate that. Guys, I hope that this was helpful. This was another part in our series on overcoming infidelity complexities. There's going to be a whole lot more to come. If there are particular topics regarding infidelity that you want us to cover, let us know. We will be more than glad to do that. We love you. We'll see you tomorrow for another session.
Can bring us down.